and he will support Intercoin with some other stuff during the way, on the way to our mutual prosperity.
Hey, Alicia.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Alicia.
Hey, how you doing?
Morning.
I got absolutely soaked walking back there from the gym. It's pouring down here. Almost like it's 10 o'clock at night. It's pitch black and grey. What a place, man.
It's nice and sunny here.
Yeah, rub it in. Rub it in.
Sorry.
This is the second wettest city in the UK, apparently. So.
Your volume's a little low, by the way, Carter. So I don't know if.
What's up, Matt? The voice is low.
Yeah. It's
yes, also.
2 seconds.
Cool. Yeah, try that out. No, but I hope you had a good workout and everything. What's on the?
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Norman, just let us know when YouTube is live, and
yeah, YouTube is currently live.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can we start again?
I'll tell you what, we can cut.
In order not to cut out all our corrections.
Sorry, I'm just looking like a glass of water in the meantime. Just bear with me, since we're starting again.
Run off and like restart. So. My bad. I guess I was right button, so maybe it caught some people by surprise. How's everyone doing today?
Great. Are we live?
Nice.
Let's clarify. Let's begin from the beginning, like we usually do. Stacy, please go ahead with your welcoming notes. It would help.
Okay, we can just welcome everyone that's tuning in to the Intercoin show. Today, Greg, the founder, will be joining us and speaking about what we have going on with Intercoin, new things coming up, our app. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Stacy Brown. I'm part of the Intercoin team. I've been with the team probably for about 8 months right now, and my responsibility is just building up the community.
That's great. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Stacy. I'll be next. My name is Elena Rivers. I am one of the advisors on the board of Intercoin, and I'm based in UK. My responsibility generally, I am looking after partnerships and different types of ambassador programs, what we have with our team. And today on a call, I'm looking forward to hear all the updates. And the main update from our new head of ambassador program for Play to Earn program. And Matthew, he is with us today on a call, and he will tell us a little bit more about himself and also about the plans of Intercoin to work with Play to Earn.
That you give me the floor, Elaine. Am I good to go?
Yes, please, Matthew, introduce yourself, please.
Okay, yeah. As you said, I'm newly appointed as the ambassador for Play to Earn, and specifically like blockchain and NFT gaming with Intercoin. Since the appointment and since over the last however long I've been putting together what would be my own personal event that I want to host in London regarding NFT gaming. So it's been on my mind for a while. It's something I've been engaged with for a long time. But with this new opportunity with Intercoin, it's something that I'm kind of trying to explore not just NFT games in a play to earn sense, but also how we can bring gamification to the Intercoin project to hopefully incentivize people and individuals to engage on a community level in a way that benefits them in an enjoyable way, you know. So yeah, I mean, just a quick bit about myself, for those who aren't aware of my long-winded story within the industry. You know, I became interested in cryptos in like 2013, and later that year built my own mining rigs for personal use, expanded this into a business, and was like mining with others as part of a collective, offering contracts for partial ownership of the machines and providing simple voting mechanisms as to their usage. So we had users sort of saying that we want to mine X, we want to mine Y. So it was democratic in its basis, which yeah, the idea of that democratic system of deciding what we would mine was a key component to like building around information sharing and understanding between shareholders. And I know decentralized voting structures are something that's integral to Intercoin as a movement. And I feel that it's somewhat glossed over by mainstream blockchain projects these days. So I was wondering if anyone could sort of chime in on what made that aspect important to them in the context of Intercoin, and where do we see like voting going in the future? This kind of decentralized power distribution.
So, Matthew, there's on the voting side in the US, there's a group called the Government Blockchain Association, who are mainly
Mike, I'm sorry. Please introduce yourself at the beginning. I know that you want to answer the question. It would help for audience to know a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what is your experiences, please.
Oh, of course, yes. Sorry. Thank you, Elena. So I'm Mike Bennett. I work in standards in the DLT and finance space. I co-chair a couple of committees on the object management group on blockchain and finance, and I do standards consulting for the IOTA consortium as part of that. And I've recently joined this community, and I'm looking to help with things like the Unblockers project on aspects of digital ledger governance and so on. And there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in the object management group in that space. And Matthew, I just wanted to very quickly chip in without wanting to interrupt your flow too much, just to say that in the US, there is a Government Blockchain Association. They've occasionally liaised with some of our work at the Object Management Group and the Government Domain Task Force there. And they're mainly focused on the use of distributed ledger for voting for elections in the US. So I just thought it's worth making you aware of that in the context of what you were talking about. Thanks.
No, that's great. That's why I opened the floor to questions, is because, you know, we're a hive mind. Ultimately, we are all bringing in our shared experiences from around the world of blockchain. We all have varied experiences. You know, I'm focusing particularly on play to earn games and NFTs and things like that, because I've been involved with that for some time. But, you know, as I said, I've been in crypto for a decade, and I'm no stranger to, you know, IOTA, for example. I was an early investor in IOTA. I've been an early investor in pretty much everything that has come out, just because as it came out, it was the new hot thing. So I just dove on it and went into deep dives and have reams of notes surrounding all these things. But, you know, it's those promises of kind of being a force for grassroots activism against, like, I guess you could call the incumbent financial systems that drove me to get involved in the community, you know, surrounding crypto. And, you know, I started spending more time at attending blockchain events for networking purposes, which is how I met Elena, and establishing these relationships that we're all seeking to have with like-minded individuals, so that we can disseminate this kind of information and get everyone thinking along the right lines with these latest projects and what we believe represent sort of the foundation of the infrastructure going forward. You know, like, I was early to the likes of Uniswap, Polkadot, Chainlink, Polygon, Decentraland, like the list goes on. And at the time, I really didn't know what I had. So, you know, I didn't quite win big, but I was wondering, does anyone else have like their eureka moment surrounding Intercoin? Like, what really sparked their imagination about what this project could represent for the future of digital currency and the future of community coins, which to me is a really new concept. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can from you guys.
Yeah. Wait, so I mean, okay, I'll answer your question. So I mean, when Greg first like talked about some of the economic impact, so I was a finance student, right? I've always had like a casual interest in economics. Like even when I was in high school, like, I mean, I've always been interested in how like the economic plumbing of our society worked, and I would constantly read books. And basically, like when Greg told me about like all the use cases of like community currencies and like UBI, and that was like what sold me for it, was the whole community currency aspect and how it could potentially revitalize local economies. And I have a question. I have a question back for you though, Matt, which is, so you talked about being like an early investor in like all these projects. So were you part of the Link Marines when Chainlink was first coming out? Because I saw like Chainlink as well back in 2017, and I've always been fascinated by how well read the people in the community were. Like every time I saw a Twitter discussion or like a discussion on internet board, the people with the most knowledge, they were Chainlink holders, and they would write like these paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. How like people just didn't understand like why Chainlink is going to go to $1,000 in the future. So, I mean, were you like involved in that like Link Marine community or not? Like really, you just
I wasn't. I'll be honest. It was a case of because it was so early on in crypto, we didn't have the thousands and thousands of coins, and it wasn't as much information to trawl through back then. It was more a case of a new coin came out and was added to the exchanges, and everyone was like, "Oh, what's this new thing? What's this shiny new toy that we can delve into?" And I would read, as you say, I would read the Twitters, I would read the Reddit posts, I would read things that people were saying. People were far more intelligent than myself, and use their optimism as a means for me to judge whether or not something seemed like a good project, and sort of read what it's difficult, because I'm sure that we've all had projects that you've attached yourself to based on a glorious seeming white paper that ultimately doesn't come to fruition, or the amount of coins. I mean, I say these many coins that I've invested in that have done well, but I speak nothing to the graveyard of coins that have fallen into disrepair and the teams have disbanded and the entire project has been abandoned. So sure, I've done well with these ones, with the likes of Chainlink, where I saw that initial idea of interoperable blockchains and sharding and thought, oh, that sounds interesting. That sounds like something that might benefit the ecosystem in the long run. And I threw some money at it because I wanted to. For me, it's always been a case of not, I'm going to win big on this. It's kind of like, to bring it back to gaming, when I love a game, or if I really enjoy the game, you better believe that I'm buying that game and the sequel, because I want to give that developer more money and more funding to create similar experiences that I know are going to be worthwhile in the future. So for me, participating in those economies and purchasing into these coins and these tokens and NFTs or whatever, it's based around wanting to see that succeed and wanting, what people say. I might not necessarily understand it all. I don't come from a computer science background. I'm just one of these people who has a decent retention for knowledge and just globs onto whatever the smartest person in the room is talking about. But it's that trust in people that kind of made me want to, as you say, you were reading through the Twitter posts, me too. And I was saying, well, these people sound like they know what they're talking about. This doesn't sound like people who are just parroting the same talking points. They're getting into nitty gritty discussions as to why this is the next great thing. So yeah, I've just tried to be a part of every community at early doors to kind of get a grasp of what's going on. And I would say, regrettably, one of the ones that, to bring it back to gaming again, I dismissed Axie Infinity. It didn't appeal to me aesthetically. I'm not that kind of gamer, the cute and fluffy Axies have charm, but they were never for me. So, I mean, I'm sure all of our paths are riddled with examples where we may have struck gold with some investment in a nascent token and we dismissed it just because it didn't seem like it was going to offer any real shift in the paradigm. But I mean, Axie it put the concept of NFT powered games on my radar. But I just knew, I was like, this one isn't for me, but let's keep an eye on this space and see what happens. In theory, I should have just bought some AXS and just said, you know what, let me grab a few. But you live and you learn in that regard. But I've always been a keen gamer, and as a former, specifically Hearthstone player, and I know that you, Norman, you were a Hearthstone player. We spoke about it briefly.
Yeah,
so I was drawn to.
so
I was drawn to one of the earliest NFT-based projects, which was Gods Unchained in 2019. And, I'm now a moderator for the biggest team on the game, and we stream to thousands on Twitch, and I myself am not, I'm pretty good. You know what I mean? I do well, over 70% win rate sometimes, so it resonated with me. But what was it about specifically like Hearthstone for you, and that drew you in and kept you playing and spending, obviously? Because I think it's that is the thing that I'm trying to analyze most for in the NFT gaming space, is like, what is going to drive us to want to spend our time on this?
yeah, I'll tell you. I'll answer that. The answer is simple. It's just, for Hearthstone, it was the exceptional user experience. That was it. It's like Steve Jobs and the iPhone. There are some things where you just go in and you just look at it. And there are no further words needed. Things everything is intuitive and it just flows into place. Things work as you expect they should, and the design is well polished. It's both the visual aesthetics aspect of it and the way people are actually interacting with each aspect of the game. Everything is just flowing so smoothly, and I think for a lot of NFT games, I haven't seen anything up to that level of polish. I mean, I've seen even the most popular game right now, Axie Infinity. If you look at and I kind of struggle to use the proper terminology to make the comparison sometimes, but I would just have to boil it down to something very simple, which is just look at it, right? Just look at it and go actually experience it. The difference is intuitive, and it requires no explanation. You look at Axie Infinity, yes, the coin has done 1000x, but the actual game itself, it's it's fun, but it's not on the same level. It's not on the same level as a polish as Hearthstone, in my opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't offer the degree of, in my experience, I've watched enough gameplay videos to see if I want to get involved at this late stage, and it just doesn't offer the same intricacy of gameplay mechanics that drew me into Hearthstone, the depths of the strategies involved. And it really is, it's one of those things, some people can look at certain hobbies and say that doesn't really have any intrinsic value. Watching TV, you can learn great concepts from watching well-written television, and in the same way that a well-made game, it really does tax your mind. It does push you in ways, and push you to think in ways that you encounter a problem, you think of ways that you can overcome it, you employ that strategy and see if it works, and then you rinse and repeat. You go back to the drawing board. The amount of Gods Unchained, for example, is a pretty flawless clone of Hearthstone, and it's added so many other mechanics to it that make it interesting. But the thing that keeps me coming back is I'll play a game and I'll go on a 10-game win streak, and then one guy will completely dismantle my deck, at which point I whip out my notepad and I say, right, what was particularly difficult about me dealing with that person? What did I find difficult? What do I need to overcome? What is the thing that will drive me to reach the next stage in my own deck composition? What's going to allow me to win 11 games straight, you know. And it's that kind of, I mean, that's the reason why I personally spent over hundreds of pounds on in-game assets in Hearthstone, which, you know, unfortunately are now languishing in an unused account. You know, they can't be traded. They have no use for myself or the broader community. I can't share them even with, like, I can't even donate them to effectively charity. They are now just nothing. And that's what, this is the moment when I saw, you know, Gods Unchained is offering earn NFT cards. They can be sellable to other people. It's free to play. And immediately, like, the advent of users having true ownership over their in-game items and what that could mean for the landscape across like all genres of games, it was immediately apparent to me, having, you know, that industry knowledge that I've accrued over probably, you know, 25 years of playing video games. I was not about to overlook another chance. You know, this was like, it had the benefit of Axie Infinity, but it was also free to play, right? Where Axie Infinity at the moment, to move Axies around, a lot of their revenue actually comes from the transaction fees. You know, they charge 4.25% each time you move an Axie, and that goes directly to them. That's how they've managed to reach this $5 billion valuation, and they're the first NFT gaming project to reach that level. And now they've increased their fees further to 5.25%. You know, so they're really coming at you from all angles in this regard. But to that point, you know, I know Carter, I've been told that you're also somewhat of a gamer. And with like the accessibility of integrated NFTs in games, I was wondering if there was like any type of game you played where, or anyone, if I want to chime in on this, where you think trading and selling in-game items might further drive engagement, or, you know, how that might benefit the life cycle of a game, because we all know that you're not still playing the game that you've been playing like for years. You know, it's dropped off. You know, they go through life cycles. They live and they die based on how people engage with them. So yeah, I was just wondering if there's anything you can think of that would be added to a game that you've loved in the past, how it could be beneficial with NFT involvement.
Well, as far as gaming goes, I mean, I used to game quite a lot a good few years ago now, back on, you know, Xbox 360 and PS4 up to 3 and 4, I think. But then I had to stop it because I was getting out of control. I was playing till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and had to get up at 7 and 8. So I've actually stopped it a few years ago. But I've just bought a Oculus Quest 2. So that's still waiting to get delivered. So I'm going to be delving into the whole metaverse thing soon. Regards to, you know, play to earn games, I don't really know too much. I did have a look at Axie Infinity. That's actually something I was going to ask you with regards to play to earn, because obviously the games are, I know you're saying that it's got a lot of levels and strategy and stuff. I understand that, but, you know, when you look at it, it's quite compared to, you know, a first-person shoot 'em up game that you get on, you know, a PC or, you know, a games console. How long is it going to be till you get games of that sort of caliber and, you know, into this sort of space? Because it really isn't something that I'm overly knowledgeable on, the play-to-earn games at the moment. But it's something I'm definitely looking to, you know, learn more about and get involved in. So yeah, how long is it till you're looking at basically the game not improves, but I think you know what I mean, get to that sort of standard that you see on, you know, games consoles and high-powered PCs?
I know what you mean entirely. When I'm trying to convince people, I've been trying to convince people for years to get involved in Gods Unchained. And if you haven't played something along the lines of Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering or even Pokemon the trading card game, and I know no one really played the game back when I was a kid, it was just about trading the cards. It was about, I like the picture on that, which is, I guess, what something like Axie Infinity kind of banks on, is purely that aesthetic vibe and like, oh, I think that looks cute, or I think that looks cool, therefore I want it. For me, that's never really been a driver of my participation in games. It's about utility. With like Gods Unchained, all of my cards, they benefit a grander strategy. But then, as you say, where's the high fidelity games? Where are these, you know, engaging narrative driven experiences that provide us with in-game items that we can participate in with friends potentially and reap rewards whilst also enjoying that level of polish that we kind of expect from the console generation, and not just a lot of them. Honestly, it feels like we're back in the Super Nintendo era. It feels like side-scrolling platformers, like, you know, we're going back in time, because it's being made at the moment predominantly by indie developers, you know, independents who are using their own time and funding to incorporate this into games. How long do I think until we'll actually reach the stage where it's got the same kind of graphical fidelity? There is a project called Elluvium, which is due to come out potentially this year. I believe it is later this year that they want to be launched. And that is sort of it's run on an graphics engine called Unity, which is what you think of when you think of a high-profile release. You know, something that would be released this year and is not pixelated, and it's not a 2D side scroller. So it's coming, in short. So I anticipate that, you know, over the next year and the next year as well, it will be coming to the fore a bit more, especially with, for example, you have Immutable X, which is the company behind Gods Unchained. I don't know if some of you might remember I mentioned Starkware on the last live stream, which is a layer 2 solution for Ethereum and for blockchains in general. It's a sellable API. They are providing kind of the back end of Immutable's project, and Immutable is kind of the masters of NFTs in games. And now they've partnered with GameStop and been given a massive budget to incentivize people to develop using the Immutable back end technology. So I think it's coming. I think there's a lot of talented developers out there who don't work for the big companies that we see. This is why, to me, it's reminiscent of, I don't know if some of you remember playing on a PlayStation 2, the variety of games that were available back then was massive. You know, you had entire games dedicated to very niche audiences, whereas now you see a very streamlined revenue stream, because they see, these big developers kind of see, in the same way that Hollywood does, that sequels make money. Why would we bother trying to reinvent the wheel and take a gamble on something when we can just release Call of Duty 87? You know, it's just easier, and it's they can see where the money's coming, you know, the yearly iterations of the likes of FIFA. So it's coming, in short. But one thing that's excitable about that whole thing is, like, for example, with Gods Unchained, you could see a future where the metadata from my NFTs held on that could be utilized in Immutable X's next project. They could make an entirely different genre, a Call of Duty style game, where your assets from Gods Unchained are directly usable. The idea of like having an Axie pop up in Gods Unchained is way off in the distance. You know, those kind of hyper collaborative offerings are not coming anytime soon, but you're going to see gaming companies iterating on their initial product and adding more depth to their world, and, you know, expanding further. So we are really, this is in its infancy at this time, and it's exciting. This is why I'm trying to ride the crest of this, and it's going to be, it's going to be fascinating to see where it goes. So, I mean, I think gamification has a lot of broader meanings other than just in video games specifically. And like this deeper engagement from accruing benefits through like participation in general is paramount to stimulating people's involvement in something like Intercoin. You know, you need to give people rewards. They can't just say, well, use this instead of your money. And they'll say, well, why? You know, I could just use my money. Yes, it benefits my local economy, but how does it benefit me? So if anyone could speak to like what are the hopes for incentivizing usage in communities in this kind of sense, like reward programs for being a part of the community, if anyone.
I have one more question. So I'm just curious about actually,
Norman,
yeah.
But you actually ask the question.
Oh, okay. So, okay, it's about, sorry, it's kind of hard to like keep track of like all the threads there. Okay, so your question was about like community incentivizing right? And how are you
Yeah.
going to? Okay. So okay. I mean, we do a lot. So for community currencies, okay, one of the ways is we can bake into a coin and say, hey, if you spend it at a local store, for example, you get a certain discount. And that's something you can program into each community currency itself. And have you heard about qbix? So our previous company, qbix, what they do is they make actual community applications, okay? And what we can do with the community application is you incentivize the users to take desirable actions. So actions that are beneficial towards the overall welfare of the community. And you can penalize actions that are on the opposite effect. So for example, if you think about Wikipedia, right? An incentivized version of Wikipedia might involve if someone makes beneficial edits towards a specific page, they can get rewarded in community currencies. And as a result, okay, it helps people who might otherwise not contribute to Wikipedia actually contribute to it. They can get some kind of incentive or reward, and that boosts their contribution. And the same for actual real world, like non-metaverse communities, right? If you think about a small town, you can give people incentives for spending locally, and it's a lot of theory, but it's actually been proven in real life as well. So in the UK, they have towns, and in Brixton, in Bristol, they have the Bristol pound, and when people actually receive the Bristol pound in their community, they did a study, and the study concluded that people actually went out to lunch 50% more when they received the Bristol pound as a result of these kinds of incentives. And I think that study is linked somewhere on our community forum, but I'll have to double check it. In a nutshell, these are the kinds of things you can bake into it. And actually, if you look at our community apps, we are already prototyping this idea. Actually, we're baking it in. qbix is building every year. It continues to refine itself. We make better and better apps, and we're always polishing and refining the features we're kind of always headed towards the direction of I think this idea of Web3, okay, I think qbix, our company, in my opinion, was early to Web3. Like, we're one of the first companies to bring in Web3. And if you think about the ideas of Web3, right, decentralization, okay, and actual user ownership, right? What are all the intellectuals and, public intellectuals on crypto talking about Web3 about? They're talking about decentralization. They're talking about user ownership, right? Look, these guys, okay, they are good values for projects to have, and it's a coherent vision for Web3. But if you talk about decentralization and user ownership, crypto isn't the only way to realize these values. I think qbix was able to, we were striving for these ideals even before cryptocurrencies and NFTs were a thing, right? Because in a sense, cryptocurrencies and NFTs are just a means to an end. They're a way to bring about decentralization and user ownership, but it's not the only way. And what we've been doing with qbix, it's been another way to do it. And if Greg comes on this call, he'll be able to give you the whole spiel on it. But we've been doing it for a long time. Okay, we've been promoting decentralization and user ownership by actually giving people their own social networks. So instead of being on Facebook, you have your own social application. So one concrete example is Yang 2020. So we built a social media application for Andrew Yang and his supporters. And instead of being on Facebook, they own their own social media platform. So that's Web3 without, like, that in a sense is Web3 before Web3 even was a coined term in the crypto community. And, now that crypto and NFTs are kind of coming out and people are saying, hey, you can own and you can incentivize actions for your users on these social media sites. Well, 3 years ago we rolled out and we prototyped on our apps. If you go to Yang 2020, you'll be able to see credits. Okay, credits on one of the tabs. And what do the credits do? Well, we're prototyping it, and the credits can do a lot of what people today, when they talk about Web3, what they want the cryptos to do, which is incentivize people to do stuff and also reward the users. And so when you ask about, how are we incentivizing, to summarize, our qbix apps are already prototyping credits, and community currencies in real life. They've been shown to have actual impacts via 50% increase in going out to lunch, and that's one example. And so I think the case is clear. The incentivization is absolutely happening, and we're going to be, we have the means to actually execute as well. So, does that answer your question, Matt?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I firmly believe that it's one of those things that this is why I even started mining Bitcoin in its first instance, and I identified that it was, for lack of a better term at the time, we said it was a greed-based system. Yes, we were benefiting the network, but if I was only doling out electricity costs to secure transactions on the Bitcoin network, I wouldn't do it necessarily, because where do I stand to benefit other than just spending my hard-earned money to secure something that I only use intermittently? This is where the idea of Bitcoin rewards came. This is where proof of work came. This is where proof of stake came. It all stems from the same incentivizing people to be altruistic. We all want to be altruistic, but it's whether or not that's something which our free time allows when we have so many other things on our plate. And it's a key component on whether something actually manages to maintain our ever dwindling attention spans these days. And it can be the lifeblood of all experiences, Intercoin included, be they digital, be it a physical experience. Whether we're willing to spend that time and that investment in a play to earn or a participate to earn context. Is the leisure pursuit you're undertaking, whether or not it's considered leisure hinges on a variety of factors, but it all boils down to a very human concept, whether it's a game or otherwise. Is it enjoyable? Is it engaging with this? Is engaging with this thing, whatever it may be, is it a boon to your mental state? Does it leave you feeling sufficiently rewarded? And does it capture your attention in a way that delights?
It would really be life-changing for a lot of people, because some people really, they just need that little push. They just need, a few meals to get them going, or shelter to get them going, or, Arizona, unfortunately, they closed down most of our shelters out here. It's really, really sad. The government's not doing anything about it. They've closed down a few soup kitchens. So I always say, if I ever, get to that point, I would personally like to open up a bunch of homeless shelters or soup kitchens, and, get them the mental health that they need. And it's just such a really, Intercoin can do so much, and it's just the beginning. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. But yeah, I'm very passionate about those few things. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds, I think everyone, given, well, I would like to think, this might be a bit ideological, but I like to think that everyone, given the chance and having the monetary freedom to be able to do so and to be empowered in that way, that they would be able to and want to and strive to give back in this way. Because we all see these problems, the amount of times I've been I don't have cash on me, but a homeless person has asked me if I have anything, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry, mate, that's just not the economy these days. But they're like, thank you for acknowledging me. And it breaks my heart, that it's like, so we've got to that point as a society where we don't even provide casual personal acknowledgement, not just financial acknowledgement. And as you say, they're only, in a lot of these instances, there are a few square meals a day and a few days of shelter, or an actual address away from just being a viable, well, I say the word viable, but a contributing member of society. They're not, they're not the untouchables by any sense. They are people who only deserve a chance. And I think that these kind of blockchain powered opportunities like Intercoin could really open the gate for further spending within communities to be able to support these people. And I've always said that the voting mechanisms that are intrinsically a part of blockchain governance, it would allow users to vote and say, let's hold X amount of the community store behind to help out with these individual projects, and could almost provide proposals for smart contracts to be able to help those people. And I think that given the opportunity and given the tools to do so, and if Intercoin kind of allows people to subject proposals for the grander community to get involved with, I'm sure that it would give people, and for people to be rewarded for doing so, whether that be simply an Intercoin or their local community coin that's able to purchase food, or even in the form of an NFT that says that they were there and that they helped. And that in itself provides utility for them to do things later in the progression of the area and their sort of progression in the Intercoin ecosystem. So I'm pleased.
Matthew, yes, you're actually quite new to Intercoin, but we already began conversations and actually Stacy wrote an article also in our community forum that New York mayor candidate Eric Adams, he wants to already use electronic cyber wallets in New York. And such a system could help streamline services to people, exactly the homeless people. And Adams looks at that point about New York very closely, because he is a former police captain. And in New York, there is homelessness, like in every capital city, is almost on every corner, homeless people. And the system with Intercoin or with city coins, with New York coin, it can help to provide incentives, down payments for financial literacy, for example, for these people, or instead of giving them dollars like income, city can provide them with city coins, and they would be able to use this for food, for local food. And it's not too expensive. It's like people can receive just $50 elementary phone to use as their wallets, and to receive weekly payments from the government. That's what we are negotiating now. We are working with different officials in conversation. Maybe Stacy, you can tell a little bit more about city coins. You've been on different meetings with them.
Oh, just like as for us, Intercoin having city coins, like it's all about having applications to get money in the hands of the people. That's what's important. Any city can have a coin, but unless there's applications involved that actually, give a use case, you're kind of at a standstill. So that's kind of where Intercoin comes in and wants to, power city coins with applications. Whether it be like UBI or, voting, there's many things you can do with that. So that's just kind of where the use case comes in.
With regards to the homelessness thing, what we're saying there, I stay in the the city centre of Glasgow, and when I take the dog out, I quite often see the queues for the food banks on George Square, and obviously it's a horrible sight to see, and the fact that they put it right in the city centre as well, so they've got to stand there, you know, waiting to just get enough food to get through the day or whatever. That was one of the things as well that really attracted me to Intercoin, amongst other things, obviously. And, you know, you're talking about the applications there. We've got the ability to, you know, airdrop, you know, a few pounds, whatever it would be, you know, £5 a day or whatever, to home anybody that's got a smartphone, or you could even, you know, get the smartphones in the hands of the homeless people. Most seem to do have them anyway, as opposed to get.
Carter, we lost your sound. If you continue to talk. Oh no, we lost Carter. It's some
Yeah, he said he's having some problems with his service.
Yes. So in terms of like elementary food is becoming normal for people to receive food in soup kitchens, but the payments to these soup kitchens, it's difficult to control. And with the blockchain transparency, we can show the trust into projects. We can provide opportunity for local governments to see how much is spent, and community can vote on universal basic income for people, and Intercoin coins, local coins, can set up certain funds specifically for food storage or shortage, or families in need, any type of support what government provides, local government. And not only local government, so many churches in UK, I know that I supported a few churches, and we have organization Crisis. I've been volunteering as a befriend person because of my my past experiences with homeless people in Ukraine, in Russia as well. And that's also can be set up on the blockchain with the Intercoin.
I got blocked off there. My Wi-Fi's playing up. I've been on my mobile data there. Where I was actually going there with that was I've actually been in contact with some MSPs here. That's member of the Scottish Parliaments, and the subject in my email was tech solutions to food banks, for example, and it's been quite astounding how much, you know, fiction I'm getting. It's like, well, obviously it's politics, so, you know, politicians are only really interested in getting votes ultimately. So, you know, so I'm going to go down the route now through advisement from. I did actually get a contact with my local MSP's advisor, so I'm now going to go down the charity routes and try and do it at even more local level. Because obviously doing these things at a national level is a no-go. It really needs to be down, you know, as local as possible. I was been quite shocked because Glasgow's actually split up into 5 or 6 different constituencies, and even just going down to my local constituency seemed to be too big an area. So yeah, it's challenging, but I think it's going to be like a, you know, domino effect or network effect. You know, once this is implemented into one area, you know, the next area is going to look across and go, like, that's working, we will do it. And then it's really just getting, you know, that taking that first step and getting somebody to take it on, because, you know, they do have the technology now to really change people's lives, and there's no need for, I mean, we can't completely fix it, you know, obviously, but we could definitely play a huge part in improving it in a massive way. So yeah, that's something I'm kind of working on just now. Yeah, like with local charities there. Hope you heard me. I've got a really bad signal here.
Well, Carter, we heard you. Sounds very Nice. Thank you very much for your local work in Glasgow and in Scotland in general. Mike, what is your opinion? What is your overview at the moment of Web.3 or local community coins? Would you like to say something about this?
Oh, thanks, Elena. I'm still kind of learning and figuring things out, but one thing we've been doing at the Object Management Group is trying to understand the underlying semantics or meaning of money and currency and so on in order to then define how digital currencies fit in with that, and crypto and central bank digital currencies and so on. And so we've come across this notion of community coins like the Bristol pound and the Brixton pound and so on. And yeah, I was just thinking, while Norman was speaking earlier, that the way that having a local currency like that, and these are physical tokens, of course, creates an uptick in people going to local restaurants and local businesses and so on. Sounds like a great opportunity for post-COVID recovery. I'm just intrigued about two things. I think one is how to get the penetration for people who are not particularly, computer users or even crypto geeks, or, I'm thinking about the little town where I live in Wales. We have a couple of butchers and a couple of little restaurants and things, and they don't even have websites, So how do you get that kind of penetration, or is there some hybrid model of physical and crypto, or is there like a simple application that people can just put on their smartphone that lets them spend money that way? That's probably the simplest thing. And the second thing I'm intrigued about, and I'm sure there's already a lot of stuff on this I haven't caught up with yet, is when you look at community currencies like the Bristol pound and so on, they're issued pegged to a local fiat currency such as the British pound, and so they're not kind of sitting in that crypto world where the prices all go up and down every time Bitcoin goes up and down. They're actually pegged to something real, and I think that's really a key thing for any community currency, that how we connect to the underlying economic value or economic activity, and whether that's things like, can you create a coin in which you can formally link the units of it to some kind of unitized commitment, whether that's monetary or work or activity. Here's a $10 for equivalent for a haircut or something, that you can base the coin in sort of economic activity in those kind of ways. Or how do we kind of peg it to a local currency of some sort, so that, in other words, the coin's value is not kind of inflated by all the crypto instability and volatility, but is pegged to something real. So I'm sure there's a lot of stuff you've already done on that I haven't found yet, but those are really the two things that immediately strike me that I'd love to learn more about at some point.
So, great questions, Mike. I think now you're getting into the real cutting edge theory here, and we've looked at it and we thought about how we're going to do it. So basically, okay, there's two ways in which you can. So you're talking about how we're okay. Would it be fair? Like, are you basically talking about how community currencies can have a stable value? Like, is that basically the question you're asking?
Yes, but it's deeper than that. In order to have a stable value, a currency has a stable value because it's connected.
I got you. So basically, two theories. Okay, there's two ways. The first way is pegging to a basket of goods. Okay, and this is something. So, when Nassim Nicholas Taleb, okay, he's like a finance professor at NYU. And a really influential person. He wrote like 5 books about like finance and economics. So he's a famous like Bitcoin bear. Okay, he's very bearish on Bitcoin, and he says, yes, we need, if we wanted to create a currency that's not fiat, that's not backed like the U.S. dollar is, okay, and we want to make a better currency, there's a way to do that, but Bitcoin isn't it, because there's nothing pegging Bitcoin. Okay, and he said basically the way to do it is you peg to a basket of goods instead of pegging to like another fiat currency, because if you peg to another fiat currency, then you're just a fiat currency. You're not really like independent from the fiat system. So you peg to a basket of goods. And this is corroborated by another economist. So his name is Tom Greco Jr., and we cite him on our website as well. He also talked about in his book pegging to a basket of pegging to a basket of goods. Okay, so that's one thing you can do. And a basket of goods, that could be something. The way we calculate CPI in the United States, which is the inflation index, is we look at the basket of goods, right? And then we calculate an index based on that. And we can do that the same with a cryptocurrency, right? We already have in the Intercoin roadmap. We already have this idea of making an index to track the level of prices in the community. So it's only it's a very short jump from that to a currency that's pegged by a basket of goods. So we can do that. That's one way. The other way is the credit way. And basically, if you look at Tom Greco in his book, he talked about, one of the reasons why. So he basically advocates for the idea that money is a type of credit. Okay, so it's like a type of money is basically a type of loan. Okay, and if you think about loans, think about who can issue, who can borrow money, basically. So borrowing money and issuing loans are two sides of the same coin, right? And if you think about it, so for example, big governments, so big companies, they can issue bonds, right? They can issue bonds. Ordinary people, you might put a mortgage on a house and issue some mortgages like that, right? Where down to the consumer level, you might have a credit card and be issuing credit, right? You're issuing a credit card loan, or you are borrowing money, two sides of the same coin, right? And in all these examples, basically, the idea is you're issuing some kind of credit, and you're receiving something else in return. Okay, and basically, if you extrapolate that to the level of governments can also issue bonds, and so ordinary people, they're able to borrow money from their credit card. Why? Because basically they make money off of their salary, right? So you can issue a credit based off of your future income. So a company can issue bonds also because they make money in the future, so they can issue this type of credit. And so can a government, because they have revenue via taxation, and they can also issue bonds. So issuing bonds is a lot like basically issuing fiat currency. Basically, these two things are kind of the same concept. And the idea is, the bigger, when another way of doing this community currency is you can basically go to the big, you need an entity that can issue a lot of credit, okay? And you need something that can issue a lot of credit. So that can either be like a big corporation, right? So if, for example, a utility company in your community, they can issue a lot of credit. So it can be that, or it can be a government that has a high tax base and can, that government can issue a lot of credit. Well, on the flip side, they can do that for community currency. So they can now issue a type of community currency, which is also, it's backed basically by the fact that they're able to, in a sense, buy back their own community currency from taxation. And they're able to do that because they can tax assets. The other is a credit model, so to speak. Does that kind of answer your question, Mike?
It does very much. I'll be brief, but yes, I like the basket idea. I've not seen that before, and it makes a lot of sense. It's all about linking the currency to something real. The credit model is something I've been looking at for a while with a few of my colleagues. So in not in IOTA, but in my own community called the Semantic Shed, we do what we call formal semantics, or if you like, ontology is the name of the kind of artifact that we produce. And I produced an ontology for the finance industry that's quite well known and being used by some of the banks in various ways. And we mapped out all of the semantics of debt and all the different kind of debt instruments and, tranched asset-backed securities and CDOs and all those things. Mm-hmm. And you described it very clearly just now for everyone else. That's a really nice summary of how debt works and the fact that, yes, debt is the same as currency. I like the idea of having a company-issued debt. That's something I hadn't thought of. The thing that I've been wondering about, and this may be a non-starter, I'm still trying to figure out the economics of it, but I originally grew up in Zimbabwe, where famously we've been going without a currency for quite some time, and I've been wondering what sort of currency would be the kind of diaspora dollar, if you like. And one thing that might work, and this is just the sort of idea we've been thinking of, is if instead of having a corporation or a government or somebody issue debt that represents their kind of fairly solid debt, if you broke it down to a microfinance level so that every individual could issue $10 of debt or $100 of debt, some of them would default and some of them wouldn't, but on average you'd have some level of economic activity that's distributed that would be backed by this kind of pool. It structurally would be exactly like a junked asset-backed security, but as currency. It might be a really dangerous idea. It might be a stupid idea. A lot of people say you've got to have a central bank or something, but it's something we've been kind of ideating about for a while. Is could you create a stable coin that was basically backed by the micro commitments, and using our ontology approach? I should have said one of the key things we've done in our ontology and digging into a lot of research in the accounting world. There's an ontology for transactions that defines a transaction as an exchange of bundles of commitments, and every loan can be defined, every debt can be defined in that way. And so if we use that ontology to define unitized commitments so that the meaning is clearly locked in, and you could have, if it would work, I still don't know, a kind of micro currency, a microfinance debt-based currency. So that's kind of, I've just given away the whole idea of what we're doing now, but it's a big idea if it works and really dangerous if it doesn't. So I'm still figuring that out.
I think it will work. Here's why. I think if you over-collateralize anything by enough, it can be a credit. If it's just $10 to $100, that's fine, because the average person is going to earn way more than $100 over a year, and so you're over-collateralizing by a lot, really. And so, that kind of loan is really easy to make. And actually, we see it in crypto already. If you want to borrow, how does crypto lending work? It's by over-collateralization, right? So if you want to borrow $50,000 worth of Bitcoin, you need to deposit $150,000 worth of Ethereum to borrow against that. And that's why DeFi works. It's through over-collateralization. And there's an optimal amount that you need to collateralize by. And there's a lot of ways, actually, you can make it even more secure. So you can actually sell insurance on the loan as well. So you can basically insure the loan to make it even more secure. And basically, the people insuring the loan, they can collect the yield, but then they have to pay up if the loan defaults, right? And so if you combine over-collateralization with people securing the loan, and you combine these two things, I think you can get a very secure. I think you can get a pretty good cryptocurrency, and I think that's proven already. The product market fit is already found, and I think in DeFi, a lot of projects are doing that. So I think absolutely possible, and very bullish on this idea overall.
Right, that's really good to know. Because the other thing is, if you build in a level of default and you kind of have a good metric of what the average default rate is, then that gives you another kind of fallback, a little bit like fractional reserve banking in a sense. Sorry.
Yeah, Elena, you were going to find it?
Yes, I actually wanted to say that I really enjoy your conversation, and I personally think that it would be good for us to make a point, to make it as a topic of one of our next events at some point, probably next month. Because Mike, you don't know yet, but Greg recently met with Icon, and we are planning to do several projects in Africa. So that would be a very good point for us to collaborate and to continue conversation in this area.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a fruitful event.
Yeah, Norman,
Yes.
you and I could collaborate on some slides or something just to put the basic ideas together.
Yeah, I think the model. I agree. I think we have the model. It's just actual implementation details that we need to actually nail down. I think the way of thinking of it works still. There's different ideas floating around. Like, I think Greco, the economist, said basically for a person, a good rule of thumb is 3 months of income they can float at one time, and they can't exceed that, and they can have like kind of like a revolving credit for that. So that's one idea you can put in.
Excellent. Well, it looks like we discussed everything what we planned for today's event. If anyone wants to add something to finalize our timing, please go ahead and say. Okay. Well, in this case, I would like to say big thank you to everyone who came today on our show and who would listen it over the YouTube. In the future, thank you very much, Mike, for joining us today. We really enjoyed your experiences sharing with us, and it's a pleasure to welcome to the team Matthew as our new ambassador program. Thank you very much, Stacy, Carter, and Alicia for your time today on the event. We welcome everyone to join us in the community forum, community.internet.org, and in our Telegram group,